the first thing to say is this looks like the new normal for us. We are going to have to adapt to a new climate. This seems like the summers we're now going to get, and we're also experiencing very dry springs. We're working really hard with nature-based solutions. So where we have uplands that we can increase the storage of water, that's the best thing you can do to reduce fire. And then obviously there's lots of management measures, cutting fire breaks, having community fire wardens.
35 firefighters in Suffolk tackling the huge wildfire say the situation appears to be stabilising. At least 12 fire engines will remain at the scene today. Much of the land is affected by land that's managed by the National Trust. Andy Beer is the Director of Operations. Andy, good morning.
Good morning.
Tell us what you know of the current status of the fire.
Well, as you say, we've heard from the fire service this morning, things seem to have stabilised a bit. They're going to have to keep an eye on it for the next 24 to 48 hours, I think. But it's better than it was this time yesterday morning. And
explain to us sort of the scale of the devastation that's been caused.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge area, and obviously we can't get entirely on it, but at least 200 hectares, so that's 400 or 500 acres, affecting both the RSPB site where the fire began next door at Minsmere, but also most of Dunwich Heath, which is an incredibly special and beautiful place. Mercifully, most of the buildings on site seem to be okay, and we have to remember that everybody was evacuated safely, so that's something. But obviously the site is an area that people love, and it's immensely important for nature and for recreation.
And for the habitat that you look after, what will be the impact on, well, obviously the sort of foliage, but also the animals that live there?
Yeah, well, it's incredibly important for some rare birds, Dartford warbler, nightjar, and then also some amphibians and butterflies and so on. So, and a very large area of the heath has burnt. So we're really concerned that it's going to take many years to recover from this.
Yeah. I mean, what does this mean for you longer term in terms of how you manage not just this portion of land, but other areas of land that likely are in periods of drought right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to say is this looks like the new normal for us. We are going to have to adapt to a new climate. This seems like the summers we're now going to get, and we're also experiencing very dry springs. We're working really hard with nature-based solutions. So where we have uplands that we can increase the storage of water, that's the best thing you can do to reduce fire. And then obviously there's lots of management measures, cutting fire breaks, having community fire wardens. And then we regularly do emergency response exercises with the fantastic emergency services who support us. And I can't thank enough Suffolk Fire and Rescue and all the other agencies who've responded so brilliantly in this situation, because it would have been a lot worse but for them.
When you say new normal, how will that impact how you manage the land?
Yes, I mean, I think we are going to have, and we've experienced this year, extreme wind events, extreme flooding events, and we're also now in the middle of an extreme heat event, and this is the hottest summer I can ever remember in my lifetime, but it looks likely that these are the summers we're going to have to deal with, and that is a major issue for society, and it's not an environmental issue, it's a social and economic issue, as you can see. So we are going to have to adapt our practices and think differently about how we manage our land, but also we need government and other agencies to think about the wider impacts of this on society and start to think of this as an infrastructure problem rather than an environmental problem, because these things are going to happen again, and if it's not drought, which we're currently dealing with, it might be flooding or high wind events, and we really need to think as a nation about how we adapt to the climate we're going to be living in over the next 25 years.
In some senses, it's also a people problem. We know the majority of these fires are set by people. Do you think there should be new laws or tougher penalties to stop people doing things like leaving cigarettes, lighting bonfires, using disposable barbecues?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know about the causes of this fire at the moment, so I don't really want to speculate on that. But for the next, it doesn't look like there's any rain in the forecast, and we are on extreme fire alert across the country. So if I could ask everybody not to be really mindful, this is not the time to have a barbecue in the countryside. You've got to be super careful with cigarettes. We really need everybody to be at their best. So I think, disposable barbecues are not something we need in this in this society at the moment because we've got an extreme heat problem, but also we need to do even more to try and adapt our places and to make sure that we've got fire breaks in place, and we've got a response, because fires will happen whether naturally as well as as accidentally and deliberately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are some suggestions that disposable barbecues, as soon as there's a drought in place, they should just be banned.
Yeah, well, that's a matter for government, really. But I think the issue is much bigger than that, to be honest, because we are going to run out of water in the southeast of England over the next 20 years because supply can't keep up with demand. So that's the kind of big infrastructural problem we need to deal with, as well as dealing with the practical issues associated with the here and now. So our invitation to the new administration, the government, is to think of this as a cross-departmental thing that involves Treasury and other agencies as well, rather than just thinking this is an environmental or a site-specific thing. As a society, we need to adapt to a new climate. And if you look over the water to France and Spain and see what's happening there, that's the kind of thing we may have to deal with in future. And so we need to think.
Very briefly, explain that a little bit more. What's happening in France and Spain?
Well, I was thinking about the extensive wildfires in France and Spain is what I was thinking about. But we have issues. What the climate models said was we would see more extreme storm events, more extreme flood events, and more extreme heat events. And this year we've seen all three of those affecting our properties. And so we need to think about how we organise our lives, our society, to respond to those, and we need government to help us, as they're already doing, but to maintain momentum in helping us deal with that.
Could you anticipate the fires we've seen in France near Bordeaux, or the ones in Madrid near Spain? Could you see that happening in the UK?
I don't think we're in exactly the same situation with these very extensive areas of pine forest or eucalyptus. So I don't think that's likely. But what I would say is we've seen, I think, 200 fire events already this summer across different land holdings. We've had 2 or 3 very severe events on the land that we care for. So fire is an issue for us. In this instance, we've been very lucky that individual people, people have had to be evacuated. Their holidays have been affected, but nobody's been injured, so that's a blessing. But it could have been a lot worse than that, and so we really do need to think carefully about what we do in future.
Andy, thank you so much for your time. Andy Beer, the Director of Operations at the National Trust, and that is good news this morning that firefighters say that huge wildfire in Suffolk appears to be stabilising. But the most stark part of that from Andy is to saying we were warned there would be more extreme storm, flood and heat events, and this year we have had all 3.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We'll be discussing a little bit more about this actually with the Conservatives in the next few minutes, as Kemi Badenoch takes to the pages of the Telegraph today to sort of try to draw a distinction between climate change denial and net zero scepticism, which she sort of argues get bundled into the same thing, and actually they're just quite different.